Hello, waheshimiwas. I know we're in the middle of the year, but because we haven't seen each other this year, Happy New Year and welcome back to this channel. Now, as you can see from the title, and I am on brand, The Real Mheshimiwa, I am here to give my opinion on the biggest current debate of today, which is the housing levy. My name is Susan Wanjiku. I'm the founder of Wanjiku's Eye, and here I discuss the relationship between economic development and governance so that you can understand, engage, and influence the matters that affect you and I. Welcome to Wanjiku's Eye. So let's get right into it. So what is the housing levy and how does it work? Now, the housing levy is a tax whose proceeds will be specifically used to guarantee houses that are constructed under the Affordable Housing Program. Now, in one of my videos on Ruto's commitments when he was being sworn in as president, I gave a background to the Affordable Housing Program. So I want you to keep in mind that this isn't a new project. The Jubilee government started it. But the major difference is that the government of today is proposing to change the strategy to finance the project. And now this is where the problem begins. Now, the strategy that the Ruto government is taking is that real estate developers, also referred to as investors, will be contracted to build low-cost houses. Then the government will buy these houses using the money that they've collected through the housing levy. And then they will sell those houses to a specific group of people. Now, the people who are eligible to buy these houses are people who earn a low income. Now, that word low income and who exactly qualifies to buy houses under this project is yet to be properly defined. Now, here is the bone of contention. People with pay slips will be deducted 3% of their salary, and employers will also have to top up the contribution by an additional 3% for each employee. So you see that in business terms becomes an additional expense to businesses. Now, for people in the informal sector, their contribution is voluntary. Then other things that you should know is that one, even if you contribute to the scheme, like I said, it doesn't guarantee that you qualify to own a house under the scheme. And that's one of the things that people have a problem with. The second thing is if the guys who've been contributing don't want to continue contributing, either because they don't qualify as a target market or they don't want to contribute for whatever reason, they have the option of withdrawing their investment, but only after a minimum of 7 years. Then on top of that, if you withdraw your savings, your contribution will be taxed. So it's like loaning someone money and then they charge you when you ask for a refund. So number 4, a good investment or saving scheme should ensure that your money doesn't lose value over time, meaning the scheme should guarantee an interest rate that is higher than the inflation rate. So this commitment is one that the government has refused to be very clear about because they don't want to be bound by it. And why is this important? It's important because your money could lose its value very fast within the 7 years. But just to be clear also, this whole word contribute, I'm using it very loosely because it's not really a contribution. This is philanthropy by force. They don't want to call it a tax because we know that this country abuses tax. Now, it's been very interesting to listen to Ruto and other politicians gaslighting the guys who are employed with pay slips that they don't care enough for their unemployed brothers. Now, that is inflammatory and hypocritical of the government. If they are the ones who cared about us so much, they'd have started by managing what they collect properly. But this is my 2 cents, and also it's very difficult to analyze this project properly because the government is giving information in bits, plus it's still under debate, so some things might be amended. So for starters, there's nothing particularly wrong with the intervention. Why? Is there a need for affordable housing? Yes, it's true. There is a serious need for affordable housing, especially among the youth. And then also because the real estate sector in this country is just a mess with ridiculously inflated land and property prices in many parts of the country. Then another thing, yes, it's true that this project can be a source of job creation because it's a boost for the people in the construction industry, and it will have ripple effects because more people will have disposable income. So this project is just one of the many ways that employment can be created, but it shouldn't be taken as the panacea for all our economic problems. It's not going to solve everything. And then as an objection, I've had people saying that if this project will create jobs, what happens after the project ends? To that, I just want to say that businesses start and shut down all the time and new ones come up, but that has never stopped anyone from starting a business or a project. It's just the typical cycle. But I still have my reservations about this project because of the strategy that the government has chosen to take. It's an extremely risky route. And for a government that has successively failed to give Kenyans the basics, this is one big risk. The government looks like it's doing banking, insurance, a savings scheme, and many other things all in one project. And if the government does typical government of Kenya things like stealing funds and lack of transparency and accountability, it could easily become a white elephant project, and you will not be able to withdraw your money after the 7 years if you wanted to, because there will be no money. Plus, if you actually voluntarily contributed, you could lose your entire investment. So this project requires a ridiculous amount of planning. Now, some of the potential problems that could come up, which can make the whole model collapse or the program just not fulfilling what it was meant to achieve. Number one is income is not static. Incomes change all the time. I could fall under a low income bracket today, but tomorrow it's a different story. So they need to address such changes in the social status. Second, the people who qualify as low and middle income earners may not want the houses, and the ones who don't qualify because they earn more are the ones who might actually be willing to buy the houses and want them. Then there's also the issue of hierarchy of needs, which also builds onto what I've just said. And to explain this, the project is also designed to provide social housing for people who earn below 20,000 Kenya shillings. Now, it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that the people who fall under that income category will probably be struggling with many other competing needs, whether it's transport, food, school fees, water, clothing, supporting their relatives who don't have an income, health. This is Africa. So home ownership may not be in the priority list, but please note my words. I said may because it's not impossible, it's just a matter of probability. So how the government intends to deal with all these issues is an internal problem. Now, Uhuru had a similar proposal to tax Kenyans 1.5% of their salary as a contribution to the project, but their strategy to finance the project eventually had to change because Kenyans obviously complained that they don't want to make that contribution, justifiably so. So out of a target to construct 250,000 units every year, they only managed to construct about 5,000 units within 3 or 4 years, yeah. And that's because they ran into problems. And one of the challenges was that even as they constructed the units, there wasn't enough people. There weren't enough people to buy the houses, which would eventually move the project quickly so the project could finance itself. So as people pay, they construct. So the people they constructed the houses for couldn't afford them. Neither were they able to afford mortgages, and neither were banks willing to give them mortgages either. Now, Ruto's government intends to counter this challenge of demand by offering affordable mortgages under this project. Is it risky? Yes. Anyway, to sum it all up, the reason why this is a national harambe to build houses is because the people who need decent houses can't afford them. The government, the current and the previous one, are dealing with the chicken and egg problem. So let me break it down. The economy needs to grow so that people can get decent jobs and decent incomes, and then investors in real estate will want to invest in affordable housing because people will be able to afford the houses. But on the other hand, the government believes that through this project, they will create jobs which will spur other areas of the economy. Then people will be able to afford houses. It sounds like I've said the same thing, but there's a difference in the sequence. Either the jobs come first, then people will be able to afford houses without needing a hand from the government, or the government creates jobs in construction, then a ripple effect happens, then people will eventually be able to afford houses. So government intervention or nah? That's another point of disagreement. And it's important to note that the root cause of all these problems is that there's very high unemployment, especially among the youth, and even for people who are employed in the formal sector. Most aren't earning well. And those employed in the informal sector have job instability, job insecurity, and low pay. So because of this complexity, the argument has become a moral argument rather than one based on sound economics and public finance principles. But the government knows for a fact that there's not enough Kenyans who trust them enough to voluntarily contribute to the project. And that's why the government is guilt-tripping the guys who have a salary. Kwa sababu, hao ndio sure bet, even though it's a bit unfair. Now with all that said, I also believe that the resistance is also due to the state of the economy. The cost of living has been rising and rising. The value of money has been reducing because of inflation and high interest rates. Salaries and incomes have not been increasing. The Kenya shilling has been weakening, and many people are really struggling to support their families with what they have. And all this against a backdrop of increasing taxes, like the proposal to increase the VAT on fuel to 16%, which will obviously affect everything. Then theft of public funds, elected leaders having the audacity to demand an increase in their salaries, and now we are creating official dockets in government for spouses. Kenya is just a circus, and our problem as a country is living beyond our means, and we think we can pray away our problems. The reasoning of this leadership is just inconsistent. You cannot say you need more money, yet you're already mismanaging what you have. And finally, all this resistance is intensified by one thing, which is trust issues. Because in this country, we like to make accountability look very complicated when it really isn't. And because of that, Kenyans do not trust their government, because previous governments have disappointed them over and over. Most projects turn into scandals. So if I were to tell the current government to work on something, they really have to work on building goodwill and to focus on good governance, tame corruption, promote accountability, separate powers, and promote the independence of institutions. And they need to be very effective and efficient with what they already have. In short, don't be greedy. Then number two, they need to design good public policies that improve the business environment and to provide public services and amenities. So you cannot do the second one before you do the first one. And all this with the aim to reduce the cost of doing business in the country, which will then encourage people to invest in the country. It will give local industries a chance to grow. They need to make taxation policies less burdensome and complicated. And then most importantly, don't interfere with people's income. And all that is guaranteed to create jobs in different sectors so that you don't end up with a chicken and egg problem like this one. I've had the government in the last 10 years, including the opposition, saying that they're trying to emulate Singapore with this project, but the government wants to do that minus the values and commitments that got Singapore there. And commitment is through actions, like managing public funds well, not through words. So the more you mess up as a government, the less options you have to work with, which is how we ended up here in the first place. So I use this topic to usher in a new series on unemployment for you to understand how destructive unemployment is and why it should be a nightmare for any government. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you share it. Don't forget to leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.